Whether or not sufficient grounds exist to be merry, Namibia, like the rest of the world, finds itself in the middle of what is known as the annual festive season. In fact, Christmas Day is a mere 10 days away. Inasmuch as many citizens are taking a well-deserved break, law and order ought to be maintained throughout. This evening on the Wheels of Justice, our commitment is to help you stay out of both criminal and civil legal troubles during this time. A very good evening and a warm welcome, Namibia. My name is Daniel Nadunya and you are watching the Wheels of Justice. So do not move an inch. We'll be back in a jiffy to get the wheels rolling. Welcome back, Namibia. If you've just joined us, this is the Wheels of Justice, and this session is officially in motion. Joining us for this episode is Mr. Florian Biekes, Managing Partner at Metcalf Biekes Attorneys. Greeting, Leonard friend. It's good to have you back on the wheels again.
Yes, good evening, Daniel. I believe it has been quite a minute since I last saw you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in pursuit of laying the foundation of this evening's discussion, let's start from the very beginning. Perhaps if you can remind us, what is the purpose of law? What purpose does it serve? Why does it exist? Perhaps let's start from there.
Daniel, it's in essence a very difficult question to answer because it's not just one purpose that the law serves, but there's a variety. But the essential cardinal ones that I can highlight for you and for the audience today is, firstly, it obviously ensures standards. Now, when I say standards, I mean that there were certain rules, policies, regulations, and laws that you need to comply with. So in essence, that is what the law provides for. Now, one of its main purposes also is to maintain order. Now, you can just imagine without the laws, it would have been chaotic.
Yes.
If there is nothing that regulates people and to allow them to operate in a certain fashion in order for society to develop and to be peaceful. So therefore, it establishes and it maintains that order. Now, what is also important as part of the purpose of the law is obviously to resolve disputes. Now, you might have a dispute with your employer. That's a dispute. The law caters for that. You might have a dispute with your partner, your wife. If you want to get divorced, it creates that mechanism. Any dispute that parties will have, there will always be conflict on earth. There will always be conflict amongst parties and amongst entities, and that is what the law also caters for, to enable the parties to resolve those disputes that may arise between them. And then obviously one of the main important purposes of the law is that it ensures justice. This obviously entails that it allows for citizens, for the protection of their liberties and obviously their rights that have been now granted by it. Also, if we can go back to at least 1990, to the Namibian Constitution, it caters for that. And not only is it Namibia that has a constitution, there are various states or various countries around the earth that has constitutions, and that is what it provides for those fundamental rights. That allows us even here to sit today as free men in Namibia.
I mean, one looks at law, and when somebody hears the term law, they're already thinking about punishment, man. They're like, okay, this is Christmas, and there comes the law again to prevent us from being merry, and being happy during this festive season. Is that the case, or it also exists to reward those conducts that are deemed to be good in society?
I don't think anyone has received an award for being a good corporate citizen.
Right. But punishment.
But punishment. Let's not think of it in the sense of punishment,
Right.
Obviously, people's conduct and their actions, they may have consequences. And depending on whether their conduct is lawful or not, you will then obviously face then the wrath of the law. But Daniel, you must know that there's a lot of people that enjoy weekend after weekend, month after month. There's nothing really so special about the festive season. What makes it special is that you have an opportunity to be with your loved ones, with your family. You can travel, the year is now winding down and everyone is in a good mood. But the law that applied from January, it's still the same when it comes to December. So it's not there to curb you from having fun. You can still have fun, obviously, within the required standards, the standards that the law have set.
But perhaps the difference is the enforcement of the law. I think when it comes to the festive season, the enforcement of the law seems to be more tougher, stringent, more enforced. Police visibility is everywhere, roadblocks everywhere, as opposed to the rest of the year, isn't it?
You can say that, but why? The question is, why is it like that? Remember, throughout the course of the year, people are normally just at home, 1 or 2 people with travel. So what the police do is they are not there to react. It's more for crime prevention in the first place. That's why you will have, because there will be more people on the roads. There will be more people that will be going out, for example, to entertainment areas. They might go clubbing. So what the police is doing, it's basically not just to enforce the law, but also to prevent. And through that prevention, people will know there's the police on the road. So I'm not going to be drinking and driving. And because there's a lot of movement throughout this time of the year, that's why you would then deem it to be more rigid or stringent during the festive season. Like you would know, Swakopmund, just know for a fact that there's going to be a roadblock. In Marintal, there's going to be a roadblock. Keetmanshoop, every town that you enter, there's going to be mainly going to be a roadblock. And that is just to ensure that our roads are safe.
Yes. What are the common trouble that one can face that are most common during the festive season?
If you break the law, you are certainly in trouble.
Yes.
So, you're basically asking me, what should the people look out for?
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of gatherings. There's going to be a lot of social interaction throughout the course of the festive season. And how you conduct yourself, that's basically what the law caters for. Are you going to be violating the law? Or are you going to be complying with the law? If you go out drinking with your friends or with your family and yet you're at an area outside of town or away from your home, are you going to be driving under the influence of alcohol? That's the number one thing. Driving under the influence of alcohol, that's the first thing that you should look out for. So they are very strict, the police and the municipal police. They are very strict during December because it's easy. It's like cherry picking, A lot of people are driving under the influence. That's why the statistics are much higher during the festive season. What you should also look out for is theft, especially housebreaking. Now, if someone breaks into your house, you're obviously gone. So there's a spike in break-ins also during the festive season. A lot of families travel. There's no one to look after their house. So you must ensure that your alarm system is perhaps working, or you've got a family member looking after your place, or a neighbor that you've properly locked up and secured your household contents. Obviously, you can also take it a further step to ensure that it's insured through an insurance company. So those are the things that you should be looking out for in order to secure your house also during the festive season, because believe me, when you come back home, you can find an empty home. Now, what the people can also look out for is, especially family gatherings. In family gatherings, people haven't seen each other for an entire year. Some family members have grudges against the others that they haven't resolved, or let me rather say unresolved disputes.
Yes.
And as they are now enjoying themselves, they say the tongue practically weighs nothing, but it can whip real hard and it can effect a lot of injuries upon a person.
Yes.
So you must watch your tongue during the festive season. Do not insult people. Do not swear at people. You might land in the hot soup, so to say, in trouble with the police because it can be considered criminal injuria. That's when you violate a person's dignity or privacy, and that can be done through conversations or insulting them in front of other people.
That could ultimately be the beginning of what would be domestic violence, isn't it?
Domestic violence is more when you have a domestic relationship with this person.
Yes.
In the sense that you are in a romantic relationship or you are familial in terms of brother and sister.
Yes.
You are staying in the same house. So let's say, for example, assault. Assault is when you just slap someone. But if you slap a family member or your partner or your brother or your sister, that assault can be read with the provisions of the Domestic Violence Act, and then that elevates a normal offense of just common assault because it's now more serious that it's read with the provisions of that act, and your punishment might be a bit more severe. So that also spikes everything in terms of who it is that you are attacking or you are assaulting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you spoke about gatherings. Does the Public Gathering Act come into play during the festive season more so than the rest of the year, given the fact that many people will be gathering together?
You know, I've actually never thought of that. I don't think it. I don't think it applies because it's a social gathering. I know if
Right.
if it's, I can't recall now the
Does
definition.
does the act only apply to demonstrations?
To demonstrations. I think of the larger public that gathers. You know, it's a difficult one, but I've never heard of any group of family members being prosecuted for gathering together, unless obviously the law says that you can't gather together, as in the instance of the COVID regulations, which the people nonetheless violated.
What happens if it's a church or a religious gathering and they decide because we are celebrating the birth of our Savior, we are going to be marching from Katutura to the Zoo Park, and
No, when they start to march, then obviously
Yes.
they need to comply with the law because, you know, that's the issue of public safety that comes into effect. If they are marching in the streets, who will be monitoring them, who will be giving them safe passage through town? But churches do gather on the 25th of December or the 26th Family Day, and even on the 1st of January. I know that I used to gather during those times with the family and the church members, and you would have a picnic. And
you just said you used to. It's in the past, isn't it?
No. You know, I haven't attended a church gathering
Right.
on the 25th or 26th or the 1st lately.
Right. So, but in that case, then the church or the organizer of that specific match would have to notify the police and comply with all the provisions of the law.
Yes, look, that would be considered a public gathering. When you gather in church, that's not compliance with the law that you need the Public Gatherings Act, or what is the law's name again? When you go to school, you don't need to comply with that. But even if the school wants to take now a small journey to another, you know, they normally have these 7 kilometers walk and those
Yes,
kind of things. They
yes.
might require that. But there are just certain instances for social gatherings that it doesn't even come to effect. So you can gather as freely as you want throughout the festive season. I mean, there will even be beach parties, for example. I'm not sure if they have complied with those regulations.
Yes.
You know.
Perhaps I also wanted us to look at the difference between civil and what would be criminal troubles. Maybe let's first explain what civil processes would be and what criminal processes would entail in terms of the violation of the law, maybe violating one's right.
Okay. I can use an example.
Yes.
You are at a family gathering. At this family gathering, you have a difference with an uncle of yours stemming, or an aunt of yours stemming from a long time ago, and you haven't resolved this issue. You are tipsy, you're under the influence, and you then engage in a scuffle. Through that scuffle, you might exchange words. You insult your aunt. You maybe call her a snake. You swear her body parts. You say a lot of bad things about her. So what your aunt can then do is, in this family altercation, you maybe even threaten to hurt her, to say that I will do this and this to you. You've in fact actually committed a lot of offenses. Number one is something called assault by threat, when you say that I will apply bodily harm to you, and I will do this and I will do that to you, and that instills fear in a person. That can be assault by threat. You've also insulted the person. You've sworn at their body parts or their parents' body parts, like we normally do. Then that would be the offense of crimen injuria, where you've now violated this person's dignity or even violated this person's privacy.
Yes.
You know. And then there might also be defamation if you said some untruthful things about her. For example, even swearing at her and also saying that you're a snake, like the example that I've made. So you can now be charged criminally. So when you are charged criminally, that person can open a case against you with the Namibian police. So the government then takes over the case. And when we say the government, we say the state,
Yes.
which forms in essence, so to say, the prosecution and the Namibian police. Obviously starts with the Namibian police, and then the docket is then sent to the prosecutor, who then decides. They will then decide, okay, you will be charged with this criminal offense. So that is the criminal conduct, is where the state, in essence, prosecute you for your wrongful conduct.
So that would be now a crimen injuria, assault,
Assault.
And so on.
Yes. So now that is what the state will then do to you.
Yes.
But now remember the scenario that I gave of your aunt in the beginning.
Yes.
Your aunt is still not satisfied. She said, yes, but all that the criminal case is going to do is you're going to be punished for your unlawful conduct. You might get a fine or you might go to jail, or that might happen to you once you've now been found guilty. And after your case has been proved, your guilt has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. That is in a criminal case.
Yes.
So park that. What your aunt can then also do is your aunt can also say, but you know, when you called me a snake, you called me a dishonest person. You called me a lot of names, or it can mean a lot of things. When you insulted me, you violated my dignity through this and that. You know, that is how I felt, that you violated my right to dignity that I have in terms of Article 8 of the Namibian Constitution. So I'm going to sue you, Daniel, or let's say Florian. Now the aunt is then suing
it becomes civil.
They can run separately.
Right.
So this is what the state is doing to you criminally, civilly, because you've hurt me. There's a dispute between the two of us. You've now hurt my feelings. You've defamed my character and my good reputation. I can then also sue you to get compensation for the damages that I've suffered for violating my dignity.
Now, these cases are running simultaneously.
Yes.
Does this not result in what would be double jeopardy then?
No. Remember, in the criminal court, you are found guilty and you are punished for violating the laws of the state.
Right.
Yes. In the civil matter is when one person sues another person for having violated their rights, of having caused them damages. So therefore, I will receive compensation from this person after the court have said, yes, you were wrong when you called your aunt all these names at this family gathering. You defamed her in front of the entire family, in front of the minors that were there. You know, so there was publication of your wrongful statement or defamatory statement concerning your aunt. So therefore, she's entitled to sue you. And that is on a balance of probabilities. Even the onus is different. Double jeopardy would apply in this instance. Remember, I've listed a lot of things.
Yes.
Maybe it's because it's a domestic relationship that I'm having with her. I might be charged with, throughout the scuffle, I maybe hurt her. It can be assault read with the provisions of the Domestic Violence Act. That's a charge. In that scuffle, I must also threaten her that I will do this and this to her, but I've only maybe hit her or my uncle now. Then that's another criminal charge. I have then also insulted her, criminal injuria. So you see the different charges?
Yes.
But because of it all stems from the same single act, so to say, you know, it's called the single evidence test. Is there anything more? It therefore would mean that the court will only be able to find me guilty on one of those.
Right.
The court will not find me guilty for all four of them. So double jeopardy would be, for example, if I'm being found guilty of the same act and being punished twice for having done one continuous act.
Right. These civil proceedings, and we've seen in many cases people being sued for defamation of character and so forth. What really happens in this case when the person being sued does not have resources or does not have a source of income? They are unable to pay.
So there's something called, defamation is also a criminal offense under the Criminal Procedure Act. It's
Right.
when you basically make the wrongful, but it's a fine that you can get in that instance. You can even sign acknowledgement of guilt. So it's a $200-300 fine that people are normally given, up to $1,000 for publishing defamatory statements. But when you sue the person in a court of law, Sorry, let me just quickly go back. The defamation can also include, this shaming of women where they share pornographic material of a
Yes.
person that is violating their dignity.
Yes.
They can also be charged for that. But when you sue a person, there's this principle that says that you do not sue a man of straw.
Right.
A man of
what
straw,
does that mean?
it means that this person is judgment proof. You've insulted me, I've won the case against you. The court says you must pay me $100,000. I mean, I still stay with my parents. I have nothing on my name. Where do you want to get the money from? So you sit with this judgment against this person that you cannot enforce. But okay, obviously a judgment is valid for 30 years. So you might still get it after 30 years and say, oh, you still owe me 100,000 plus interest.
Right.
But that's basically the principle.
But if they remain without resources for 30 years, it means
They are judgment
that's
proof. They are judgment proof. And if you sue for defamation, it's a matter of principle normally. Most people don't do it for the money. They do it to show that what you did is wrong, it is unlawful, you defamed my character and my reputation, and I want to set that right in the eyes of the community. So that is why they do it. It's not necessarily, especially wealthy businessmen, there's really no need for them to spend more than 500,000 on a senior advocate, a junior advocate, and a lawyer for a defamation suit. And then you get $180,000, for example,
Yes.
as compensation. And even if you recover your legal fees, you only get about 200,000, maybe back to 250,000. So you've actually made a loss at the end of the day when you sue for defamation of character.
Now, you've mentioned some of the common cases, but I still just want us to go back and look at them one by one, basically just to explain what that would mean. Of course, we know drinking and driving is the first thing that you mentioned. Can we just explain what drinking and driving would be? Is it drinking before driving included, or driving or drinking while driving?
Drinking and driving is the common law phrase, the layman's term that,
Yes.
that we use.
Yes.
But the offense is actually driving under the influence of alcohol. And that might entail whether the breathalyzer in the specimen in your breath, it's higher than 0.37 milligrams per something. I can't recall now.
Yes.
And so if you have that amount of content, of alcohol content in your body, then it will be deemed that you were driving whilst you were under the influence with your specimen. They can also do your blood test, and then it's when your blood concentration is above a certain level. So that is how they basically determine whether you were driving. So you should have been actually driving the vehicle. You should be caught whilst driving the vehicle. You should be driving on a public road also. So it's not necessarily, it should be a public road. That is, so if you're off-road, you're in the bush, they won't come and charge you there. So those are basically the essence of the offense.
Right. Does this extend to a passenger drinking?
No, that's why only the driver. So the advice here would be, people underestimate how much alcohol they can take in. But from experience, if you take about 2 cans of beer, let's say draft beer, be rest assured that it might be above 0.37 milligram. They don't really take you for the blood test anymore. They just must conduct the breathalyzer test within a period of 2 hours from the time that they've actually caught you driving in the vehicle.
Let's also look at common assault. Basically, let's put them together, common assault and assault by threat. What are they?
So like I said, assault is where you apply force on another person and you cause them bodily harm, in essence. So common assault would be, if I slap you, that would be considered common assault. Even if I punch you, that can also be common assault. But if I punch you with an intent to cause grievously bodily harm, it might escalate the assault.
Right.
So you get common assault. That is the common assault. It's not that serious. Then you get assault where I'm causing you grievously bodily harm, where I might use an object or I hit you severely with my fist or headbutt you. So that can also be grievously bodily harm. When
that
you
is
have that
more
intent,
serious.
that is more serious.
Yes.
Then you get assault by threat is when I say, for example, and you know, there's always a lot of rules and standards in terms of when it comes to TV.
Right.
But I read a recent case where the lady threatened to cut off her husband's testicles and to kill him. So that is assault by threat, saying that I will do that to you. And it was actually read with the provisions of the Domestic Violence Act, which escalated the threat.
Yes. Let's just engage our viewers so that they can also participate. You are watching The Wheels of Justice in the interest of the human rights of the esteemed panelists. We'll take a brief break or adjournment before we return to welcome your calls and contributions. So stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for being with us. Should you have a question for our expert, the number to dial here in studio is 061 291 3339. That is 291 3339. We request you to keep your interventions short and sweet. In the meantime, the conversation continues. Right. We've explained what common assault and assault by threat is. Let's also look at crimen injuria and defamation. You've already dealt with them, but basically if you can just still take it and especially give that distinction that exists between the two.
Okay. They are closely related to one another.
Right.
So crimen injuria is in essence the unlawful and intentional violation of a person's dignity and their right to privacy. That would in essence, for example, be when I insult you, where I swear at your bodily parts, like I've given the example. So that can be the criminal offense of crimen injuria. Defamation of character, as I've said, is also the publication of defamatory content of a person. It can be a criminal offense. It's also a civil matter. So defamation is the criminal offense, not defamation of character. Defamation of character is the civil offense, or where someone can sue you for defaming their character, where if you've published wrongful and unlawful statements, often concerning that person, obviously with the intention to injure that person's reputation or good name, then it will be a civil case, and that person can then sue you for that.
All right. And then we spoke about domestic violence. And this you explained, this involves intimate partners or people in
a household,
that domestic setting.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can just further. Does that include an uncle that comes to visit but does not necessarily stay in that specific house, but by virtue of the fact that you are related, it becomes domestic?
No. If you're not in the mere fact that you're related doesn't mean that you are in a domestic relation. So you must be in the context of a domestic relation with this person.
Yes.
Yes. So it wouldn't entail that. It's more for your household, or if you have a romantic relationship with this person, and we see each other, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, father, son, daughter, cousins, or those people that are staying together.
And we are saying this is a common legal trouble that one should really avoid during the festive season.
I mean, there's always dispute, you know, and what spikes it?
They should definitely avoid it throughout the year.
And alcohol spikes it.
Yes.
Alcohol and drugs normally spike family feuds because this is the time that people come together for enjoyment. In fact, even in a simple sense, if you are just with your family, obviously, you should enjoy responsibly. You should also know that you cannot just do things and assuming that you were given consent because you are with your family. Insulting people, that's a no-go area. Even taking a family member's vehicle. It happens a lot over the festive season. Someone quickly borrows someone's vehicle, the car keys is just there on the desk, then they grab the car keys, they drive off, they're under the influence, they're involved in an accident. And now you as a family member, you want to come and claim from the insurance, and the insurance was saying, but, oh no, the person that drove the vehicle was under the influence of alcohol, so therefore they violated the policy, and we will not pay you out. And now you are stuck with that debt. And what will then happen is a family member's hand might be forced to go open a criminal case against you for theft of the motor vehicle because you took it without that person's consent. And the minimum sentence for theft of a motor vehicle is 10 years.
Yo.
So you might not understand how serious it might be, but these things happen a lot during the festive season.
Yes, one should really avoid that. But as time starts to catch up with us, and as we perhaps get to wrap up this evening's conversation, let's have regard to the roles and responsibility of those entrusted constitutionally and statutorily with upholding the law, that being the law enforcement and any other person that is entrusted with basically upholding and enforcing the law. What are their responsibilities and roles?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I believe they should know what their responsibilities and roles are.
Yes.
But it's basically to enforce the law, to ensure compliance with the law. You obviously start with the Namibian police. And like I've said, they also know the municipal police. Not only is it to enforce the law, they must also obviously cater for prevention of crime. That's why they would set up a lot of roadblocks. They know how to enforce the prevention of crime. Then there's the enforcement of the law itself. So once there's a violation or breach of the law, they will be called upon, and they will then have to attend to the scene. They will then have to assist with the opening of a criminal case. So it's just a normal process, what the police should do. You can go to them if you want to open a case. You go to the police station. They should be able to assist you.
Yes.
But we do know over the festive season, because of the spike in the in offences, especially domestic offences, the police is stretched quite thin. So you might extend a call to them, and they said, we will send out a driver, and after 2-3 hours, they might only arrive at the scene, and then it might be too late.
We only have about 12 minutes, so in case you have a question for our expert in the studio, please dial away. And the number is, again, 291 333 9061 291 3339. Please, you have a chance to ask your question briefly. Now, a matter that actually featured the past year was the much publicized I am in the middle of the road walking to the zoo park. Now, this incident took place somewhere during the year. May the law enforcement officers actually film a member of the public, especially in a compromised state or in a vulnerable state, and distribute such materials? And if not, what recourse does the victim have?
You're asking a question like a true lawyer, Daniel. When you started your question off with in the middle of the road,
Yes.
the zoo park lady, you started it off with a chuckle, and I also engaged a bit in a chuckle. But I must say, as a practicing legal practitioner and watching these videos come out weekly, I must say that one was quite distasteful. We are actually having a laugh at the expense of someone else's dignity, because that is in essence what they did. Imagine you being a meme for being under the influence of alcohol. You expect these people to uphold your rights. And this is what they do. They go out and then they publish these things to shame you in the public domain. I would consider that to be a violation of my dignity if that should happen to me. I would feel embarrassed if people call me about that.
Yes.
And they
Mr. Vegas, just hold your thought. We'll continue with that. Let's hear from Tobias from Valfish Bay. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yes. Your question or contribution, briefly.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Let me say someone did accuse me, identify my name, but I want to sue that person. Where must I go first?
Right. That's it? Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
So he said someone accused him.
Yeah. And he wants
and certified his name.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what the person actually
where
said.
should he go first? I think the question is, should he report to the police first, or should he go and file a civil case first?
Like I said, the two of them can run parallel. If the person swore at him or made false statements often concerning him and violated his dignity, he might say, okay, I'm going the route of criminal injuria to open a criminal case, or for, I don't know what the defamation is all about, but then he can also open a civil case with a lawyer, where we'll ask the lawyer to obviously first write a letter of demand to the person that defamed his character, and then seeking an apology. If he only wants an apology or compensation with the apology, or just the apology, and if the person doesn't respond to the letter, then he can then issue summons in the appropriate court depending on the value. If it's above 25,000, he goes to the High Court. If the damages that he suffered is less than 25,000, he can go to the Magistrates Court.
Right. I think the caller's question is well answered.
Okay.
Should we go back to the matter,
The Zoo Park
the
lady.
Zoo Park
Yes.
issue?
So, you know, I've looked at the law, you know, and it's vice versa. The police, especially the Namibian Defense Force, you know, they call them, what do they call them? The Paraparas. The
Special Field
the
Forces.
Special Field Forces.
Yes.
So people normally complain that they ask first, they hit first, and then they ask questions later. Apparently, that's what they say.
Right.
I'm not saying that is it.
There's also been jokes of
know that-
my friend, I'm not your friend.
Ooh, let me not be sued
Right.
for making a wrongful statement and continuing that. I rather retract that statement.
Right.
So the thing is, there's no actual law that says that they can't record. But you must obviously weigh that against the person's right to privacy and the person's right to dignity, which might be limited if you're out in the public. That's why you have a full show dedicated to recording people in vulnerable states. COPS 94.7, or is it 94.COPS? You can go on YouTube, you can go watch them. They are even on TikTok. Full videos of the police and the city police, sometimes operating on Friday nights together with the members of the media. I think it's 94.7. And then they are recording people in a vulnerable state weekend after weekend.
I think Mr. Biekes, you are touching on nerves right there, but let's hear from Mr. January, Werner January from Windhoek. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. Your question, briefly.
Yes, very brief. I just want to touch on this issue of defamation matter, where I see there's a misunderstanding between the public and some people that are misleading the public. It's because of the fact that, you see, people are now giving this judge who has given this 733,000 to Mr. Shapwa. But now even the ombudsman, the former ombudsman, very disappointingly, he's giving blame to the judges.
You may not mention names of people.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
Unless you have Mr. Biekes on standby.
Yes. But I think it was important to bring this out because it seems like everybody is blaming the judge for giving that amount. But now that amount stems from the services the other party paid to their lawyers that they needed to be refunded. But the judge, he only awarded 130,000. He did not award the 640 something. So I want Mr. Biekes to really touch on that matter for people to really understand, because now people are being misled as if the court is the one that really, out of whimsically given that entire amount. Of course, the other people were entitled because the damage they did not cause to themselves. They did not invite the person to damage their image. So, of course, you had to spend money to rectify that infringed rights. And therefore, sometimes you need to recoup it. I think that was all from my side.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Right.
Yes. I will also be very brief since we're almost running out of time.
Yes.
You see, when it comes to defamation, you must obviously allege that my dignity or my reputation was injured and the damages that I suffered as a result of that violation of my right and my good name is equivalent to this amount. Now, Namibian courts generally do not give a lot. Like in America, you will get millions of dollars for defamation of character, and in some other jurisdictions. In Namibia, I think the highest is about 300, 350. I can't recall the exact amount, but I think it was for the First Lady. Not going to mention any names.
Yes.
But it was a highly publicized matter for defamation. So it depends on your standing on society, the amount that you will get, when it comes to defamation of character. So if you are a high-ranked official or you are well-known and you've got a public persona, and when people look up to you and your involvement in the community and how many community members or Namibian citizens have been informed of the defamatory comments, then that will also affect the amount.
But again, you would see in the matter of Gengos, again, you'd see that later on she went on to forgive. Because it's one thing to be awarded that amount, but it's another when somebody is unable to pay.
And that's what I said earlier on, Daniel. It's even in the matter where you are granted $130,000. It's a low amount, depending on the person that is involved. And if you look at the legal fees if you have to pay a senior advocate, junior advocate, you will not recover those costs. It's more of a matter of principle normally. You do not make a lot of money out of defamation of character. Any person out there in the High Court, you will pay more to your lawyers in legal fees, and that you will actually recover from the amount that you've claimed. If you win, you're entitled to get your legal fees back. But normally the court will grant you cost on a party-party scale, meaning that you will be paid according to the fees set out by the High Court rules. Whereas you've paid your lawyer on an attorney-owned client scale, you've paid them a much higher rate, and then you don't recover actually the full cost that you've paid. You can recover between 40 to 60%. So it's more a matter of a principle, and I think even in that matter that you referred to, I think there will be donation of the money if it's paid later on. Yes.
Let's go back to the Zupak issue, but again, with that, let's add another matter that also was flagged, relates to the police officers publishing the names of suspects before they have appeared in court. What does the Criminal Procedures Act say insofar as publishing the names of suspects or arrested people before they basically appear in court?
Daniel, I've been asked this a lot of times. In fact, I've had a lot of conversations with police officers. And they would normally tell me that, yes, they do not publish the names of suspects before they've made their first appearance in court. Even if you look at, you are a reporter, not so. You are in the media.
Yes.
And even if you report on any offense that have been committed, the media, they do not identify the name of the suspect or the accused person before they made the first appearance in court. And everyone keeps on saying it's in the Criminal Procedure Act, it's in the Criminal Procedure Act. And I had a look at the Criminal Procedure Act, and I can't find the specific section. With all due respect to a lot of colleagues of mine that have said that, I know that there are certain sections that deal with publication that is prohibited relating to criminal matters, but I could not find the one that explicitly says that you may not mention the name. But it's become standard practice in Namibia that the police nor the media will normally report on the name of the persons. But there have been instances, even before they've appeared in court, where their names have been reported on, or at least have been shared by the police, Yes. And I've not heard of instances where the police were held to account for having done that. But the general principle is, from what I understand from the media also, is that it's a code of good conduct or code of conduct that they rely upon, where they do not disclose the names. And it's also become practice in Namibia.
Because this person has not appeared in court, what if it happens that there is a decision by the Prosecutor General not to prosecute?
But that is a decision of the Prosecutor General not to prosecute. I'm a firm believer of you are only reporting on basically what happened. You are saying that who and who was brought in, they have been charged. They have been charged at the police station. That's a fact that happened. Now, no one can report on that particular fact. They must withhold the name. And sometimes the cases are withdrawn. What if, for example, someone is bribed in the instance? It goes both ways. Because on the other way, you don't want the person to be prejudiced before the prosecutor have decided whether to
Yes.
prosecute or
Yes.
not.
Perhaps as we really wrap up now, the issue of minimum force remains a bone of contention. Let's please remind Namibians about their responsibility to comply with a lawful instruction before this minimum force is used.
You know, they say minimum force. The word is actually not minimum force. So the public should be well informed. In terms of the Police Act, the wording that they actually cater for there is reasonable force.
Right.
So reasonable force will depend
what
on the
is
circumstances.
reasonable? Yes.
When there's normally the word reasonable, you say, what would a reasonable man do under the circumstances? A reasonable informed person do, or also a trained person as a police officer. What will they do under the circumstances? So it's difficult to define what reasonable means, but you would obviously expect the use of minimum force to be applied. It depends on how much the person is resisting arrest or lawful instruction, and how much force is reasonably necessary to ensure that that person complies with that directive or that they be detained. So it all depends on the circumstances. But in essence, just comply with the directives, especially when it's festive season.
Before minimum force is used.
Before minimum
or reasonable
force is
is
used,
used.
you know.
I would have loved to go back and basically ask you, you mentioned something of police officers having a program where they are basically filming these people and so on. I would have wanted to. So, does that mean an aggrieved person could actually sue the police?
You can.
Briefly.
You can. You can go to court. It depends on whether you will be successful. But if you earnestly feel that the police acted not in good faith, together with the members of the media, because sometimes people are in such embarrassing states that they are being recorded in public, you know. And this is being shared by the people that are supposed to uphold your right to privacy. I don't think posting those kind of things on social media and in the news that will deter, or it might be used to deter would-be offenders, but that should not be the case because...
Mr. Biekes, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for making time for us and for members of our public out there. With that, we've come to the end of tonight's episode. We trust that we've deepened our individual and collective understanding on how to stay out of trouble this festive season. I'm Daniel Nadunya, and this session is now adjourned.